Why do people laugh with tears? And what makes us tremble with fear? Today I want to tell you about some super interesting reactions of the human body that you don't even suspect. Stay till the end to find out why some people are always cold and how to properly use ice to heal a toothache. Let's start. Why does it hurt when water enters our nose? I bet most of you have jumped into a pool and felt that stabbing pain in your nose if water gets into it. It's like your brain is pierced by 1,000 blades. Super unpleasant feeling. But have you ever wondered why this happens? To what do we owe this painful reaction? I'm sure I won't surprise you if I say that the inside of our nose is full of nerve endings and it's quite warm, about 34 degrees Celsius. It is also a bit salty. Its salinity is about 0.9%. When we jump into a pool and water from it penetrates the nasal cavity, a real shock occurs. Firstly, the water is colder, and that causes our blood vessels to constrict. Secondly, we change its salinity. In one word, the nerves react violently to the new liquid inside our noses. It has nothing to do with the speed or the pressure with which the water enters our nose. In order to normalize the environment inside, our nose begins to secrete, which is why we have a runny nose after such an event. Next time, just hold your nose with your fingers while jumping in a pool for safety. The truth about onions and tears. The onion is one of the chef's worst enemies, but in its defense, it makes us cry, because that's how it evolved to defend itself. If an animal bites it or steps on it, onion produces a gas that repels them. The same gas is released when we cut it. Most people think that the smell itself is irritating and that's why we cry, but in reality, it is not exactly like that. The gas released from the onion reacts with the moisture in our eye to produce small amounts of mild sulfuric acid that irritates the eye. Our brain immediately sends a signal to produce tears to wash away the irritant and ease the pain. It occurs that onion makes gas that becomes acid when in contact with the liquid in the eye as a defense against predators. This is nature at its best. To avoid crying, cool the onions in the refrigerator or cut them in water. That helps. Coughing before impending pain. For ages, doctors use a trick to relieve a patient before receiving the ever-so-scary injection with a syringe. Sometimes, no matter how careful and polite the doctor is, and how many times he tells us calmly, it won't hurt, the patient tends to be worried about the needle. So before the injection, some doctors make people cough, and immediately after that, they insert the needle. According to the New York Times, this action is known as the cough trick, but exactly how it works remains unknown. Why do we laugh to tears? Usually people cry when they are sad, but there are also cases in which tears appear in extremely joyful moments, or with a lot of laughter. Psychologists say that our tears are caused by a great emotional arousal, whether it is positive or negative. In a word, our brain has a threshold of emotion, after which it releases tears, be it from joy, fear, or sadness. This is some kind of evolutionary legacy, believing that some stressful situation is alleviated through this reaction. I'm sure many of you have felt the relief after a little cry. Scientifically speaking, crying can somewhat neutralize the effects of cortisol and adrenaline that circulate in a stressful situation. In a word, our body makes some type of counter and relief after the occurrence of a stressful situation. Adrenaline is as useful as it is harmful, and our body is looking for ways to reduce it. You've probably noticed that the tears come with a slight delay, only when the situation calms down. What makes your eyelid twitch? We come to that common condition where the eyelid, usually of one eye, twitches uncontrollably. In most cases, this only lasts for a few minutes, but there are some that last for days, which is annoying as hell. The condition is called myokymia, and doctors say it's most common when you're overtired, and drinking caffeine can make it more likely. It is observed to increase with the excessive use of alcohol and lack of sleep. It is probably a matter of incorrect activation of a nerve. This condition, no matter how seemingly harmless, if it lasts for a long time or starts to involve facial muscles, it is good to consult a neurologist. Otherwise, a good night's sleep should solve the problem. What causes tingling? As children, we used to play pranks on the skin of our hands when twisting it until it felt like 1,000 needles pricking it. In medicine, this condition is known as paresthesia, and is a blocked blood supply to a pinched nerve. It's colloquially known as tingling, or of course, and it can be caused on purpose like we did. But if it comes out of nowhere, it's good to see a doctor. It usually occurs in everyday life when we stand in an uncomfortable position for a long time, such as in the toilet with the phone. You only need to change the position and rub to restore the connection, or more precisely, the blood supply to the nerve. Hey, give us a thumbs up in support if the video is interesting to you, and let's continue with more interesting body reactions. Cheese after eating. Did you know that eating and especially chewing cheese is good for your teeth? It raises the pH in our oral cavity, and the fats in it can act as a temporary protective barrier to prevent them from being damaged. Of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't brush your teeth afterwards. But if you don't have those available, cheese will do the trick. Separately, cheese and yellow cheese contain calcium and phosphates, which strengthen the teeth. It is not for nothing that the French end their meal with a few pieces of cheese after dessert. I have told you before that the digestion of food begins in our mouth thanks to saliva, which also neutralizes the acids that come after consumption. Why do we tremble with fear? Except when we're cold, we can also shake if we get into a stressful situation. Maybe it has happened to you, and you have wondered why we don't stop shaking even minutes or hours after the danger has already passed. This actually has a scientific explanation and is a legacy from our ancestors when we get into a life-threatening situation. A part of our brain called the amygdala is activated and causes us to release adrenaline and cortisol. It is adrenaline, as we know, that causes our muscles to contract and relax rapidly to be ready for battle. Our heart starts racing, our breathing quickens. In the seconds when our brain is deciding what action to take, another strange reaction might occur: freeze or fawn. Then we literally open our eyes and mouths and freeze into one position while our brains weigh the options. For some people, it's only for a moment. For others, a few seconds. It is believed that this numb state is a legacy of the instinct to play dead when encountering a dangerous wild animal, just like some specimens today. Ice for toothache. A toothache is one of the most unpleasant sensations a person can experience, and the fact that one has to visit a dentist to treat it physically adds to the pain. However, I recently came across a trick that claims to work and provide relief. You take an ice cube and start rubbing with light pressure on the fleshy part between the index finger and the thumb for about 20-30 seconds. So the pain will dull and subside for a short time. You can do this every 30 minutes until you go to the dentist and cure the problem. It turns out that this area of the palm is rich in nerve points associated with the nerve pain centers. Stimulating them with something cold relieves the discomfort. People say it helps with headaches too. So if you have a headache right now, you can try this trick and write in the comments if it works. We will appreciate it for sure. Why are some people always cold at home? It turns out that being always cold is a fairly common condition, and some people are just experiencing it in all situations. The reason for this may be complex, but again, our brain is involved, and more recently the hypothalamus, which is related to thermoregulation. If something in our body is wrong, the hypothalamus can spring into action, protecting vital organs and drawing blood from them. Lack of iron plays an important role, so people who are anemic or malnourished can also feel cold. A study shows that the perfect room temperature for men is around 22 degrees, and for women 24, 25. Women just clearly want warmth. Blow your thumb for relief. Once I got some strange advice from a doctor. If I feel like I'm having a panic attack and feel sick, I should just blow on my thumb for 30 seconds. It turned out that this simple trick really works. The science behind this seemingly absurd. The explanation is simple. Our thumb is connected to the so-called vagus nerve, which runs through our entire body. When we exhale on our thumb like this, we stimulate this nerve as well as a bunch of other processes in our body. This will relieve stress, calm your heart rate, and lower your blood pressure. The medical experts among you can confirm this information, but you should know that according to your Australian colleagues, it works. It worked for me too. Lump in throat. The expression, "I have a lump in my throat," describes a completely real event that many of you have probably experienced. That feeling where we can barely swallow and as if something is stuck in the throat and we can't get it out. Turns out that this is a specific reaction of the sympathetic nervous system, which is activated when there is danger or strong emotion. As I have already mentioned, in such a state, our brain begins to redirect blood to the muscles and to itself, and can even stop digestion altogether. Separately, in such a state, our vocal cords, or rather the entire vocal apparatus, opens up so that more oxygen can go to the lungs. This expansion of the vocal apparatus causes this feeling of a lump in the throat. That's why we have difficulty swallowing. Our brain has instructed our throat to let in more oxygen for the muscles and for the fight ahead, but we are actually fighting our own body to swallow. After a while, everything calms down and this feeling goes away. Give us a thumbs up if you found the video interesting and subscribe for more. See you next time.